Way back before the pandemic started, I, 34M, promised to send my mother, 56, and father, 66, on a cruise. It was to be a cruise around the Mediterranean starting in Southampton, England. I work in the tech industry and have done very well for myself, so I could afford this trip. My father had just retired and my mother had retired about 6 months earlier. I thought this cruise would be a nice way for them to begin their retirement together. Then, of course, COVID struck, and this put everything on hold. The plan had been that my then girlfriend and I would accompany them on the trip, and I was going to splash out the cash for virtually everything: business class airfare from LAX to Heathrow, a week of hotel stay in London before the cruise, meals, day trips in London, and the cruise. I was even planning on paying for all the drinks on the cruise, which can add up to a lot if you have ever been on a cruise. Because of the coronavirus, the cruise was cancelled, but I had bought insurance, so all costs were covered. I was able to rebook the holiday so the cruise would be over by Christmas 2021. We were all very excited about going on the long-awaited trip to London and the cruise. Unfortunately, my girlfriend tested positive for the virus 2 weeks before the flight to London. She was in quite a bit of discomfort, but nothing life-threatening. She did not think she would be well enough in time for the trip, but insisted I go with my parents, as she was in isolation in a small cottage on her parents' country estate and would be well looked after in my absence. The airline offered me a credit on my girlfriend's flights, and the cruise line changed my cabin status from shared double occupancy to single, which saved me a bit of money. As the Omicron variant was just starting to appear in England, we decided it would be best to limit travel in London, so I upgraded our room so that we would at least have a great time relaxing in London. Everything looked set and I began packing more than a week before the trip. I was so excited to be going. Enter entitled aunt, 46. A week before the flight to London, my mother's sister, who I shall refer to as Aunt Stella, called me with what she called great news. She had just been laid off from her factory job and was now available to come along for the trip. Not only that, but her son 22 and daughter 21 were both on winter break from their universities, so they would be joining us as well. Before I could pick my lower jaw off the floor, my Aunt Stella explained how it was all going to work. There were no more seats available on the flight to London on the plane I had booked, so she would take my business class seat and I would fly out on a red-eye flight the night after with my two cousins in economy on a discount airline that still had seats available. In London, Aunt Stella would stay in the room I had booked for myself in the 5-star hotel. I could share a hotel room with my male cousin in a 3-star hotel that was a couple blocks away, and my female cousin would need her own room at this hotel. We could then meet up during the day at the 5-star hotel for meals. On the cruise, my aunt had found out that there was only one cabin still available. This would be awkward if I had to share a small sleeping space with my female cousin, so my aunt decided that we could book this room for triple occupancy and that my male cousin and I could stay up all night at one of the 24-hour bars on board so that she could have the room to herself from 10 p.m. to 9 a.m. each day, as of course I would be staying in my single occupancy room. I did not want to upset Aunt Stella, so I thought I would give her a short lesson in finances before I shot down the idea completely. I asked about the cost of the 3 economy tickets, the 3-star hotel in London, and the triple occupancy cabin on the cruise. I then tacked on a conservative $1,000 times 3 for the cost of meals and beverages. I added up on my calculator, and I asked if she was sure she could afford that. She looked at me like I had just said the moon was made of blue cheese and said, "Your mother said that you were paying for everything." I politely informed her that I was in fact paying for everything for my parents, but I had never offered to pay for a holiday for her and her children. Needless to say, my aunt is not a happy camper at present. My mother says I should offer to pay for half of their expenses, but in all honesty, I don't want them to come, so this would be a counterproductive move on my part. Any suggestions on what I should do would be most welcome. This would piss me off. You need to talk to your mother and aunt about boundaries and about respecting yours. This trip is a gift for your parents, and your aunt has no right to even ask to come along, let alone invite herself and have you pay for everything. And it's one thing for her to ask herself, but her kids too? Absolutely not. That's ridiculous. I know you don't want your mother to feel guilty the whole trip, but she's gotta feel guilty either way about this whole situation. You just need to decide if you're willing to flip the bill for it or tell your aunt to f off. I hate what this is doing to my parents. Dad feels terrible, the mom feels guilty. My aunt just feels cheated out of a holiday after doing so much work on the internet to plan out this vacation to include them. The cousins feel let down because my aunt made it sound like a done deal and they already posted on FB that they were going. You gave this trip to your parents. Your aunt has to understand that. If she can't, that is her problem to deal with, not yours, nor your mother's. Your aunt thinks she can invite herself and her kids to the trip 1 week before you leave, and saying that you have to take a later flight, a different hotel room somewhere else, and on top of that, you don't get to sleep at night in the cabin you booked so she can get some sleep, and she expects you to pay for all of it. No! She shouldn't get through with this. Set your foot down, and your mother should feel guilty for her sister. It's not her job to satisfy her wishes. You said your aunt always counted on her siblings to support her financially. It should stop here. I hope you and your parents enjoy the trip. Have a great Christmas. Now, even as I type this, I want to be clear that she's never committed many of the more outrageous or extreme crimes as seen on the subreddit. So for all intents and purposes, she's not exactly at the top of the totem pole. Thank God. But she's just a perfect and prime example of how someone, no matter how seemingly good they are as a person, can be corrupted to the core by sheer, unadulterated delusions and narcissism. My mother for seemingly the past several years has been on a steady decline from the street-smart, clever, witty, tough-willed woman I admire to a raving beast who will gladly abuse the family around her just to get her unjustified savage little way. Now, initially I tried brushing it off, thinking that, hey, we all have those moments, right? Don't we all have moments where we lose our moral code and be the asshole for the day? I mean, it happens to the best of us, right? But nope, it's not even like that with her. My mother is nothing but an unjust, toxic, delusional wild animal who, the moment she's in a bad mood, will explode with pissiness and toxicity. The general formula goes as follows. She'll either get angry for no good reason at all, or if she does have, on rare occasion, a semi-reasonable excuse for it, she'll still manage to loop back around to being wrong again because she immediately turns the dial to 12 without any filter. Now, I'm not one for censoring oneself. I believe that even a lovable smartass deserves to be themselves as long as they don't abuse it to be a jerk to people, but she has no control over her anger. Either she's pissy-wissy or super angry, and often in times where it's completely unjustified anyway. In recent years, as in the past few, she's gotten worse and worse as time goes on, to the point where she's openly and shamelessly verbally and emotionally abusive to my grandmother. Yes, my own grandmother. My sickly, breathing issue-having, wonderful soul of a grandmother has been brought to tears twice in the span of barely a month now, and every time my mom gets this way, she gets worse and worse. During my birthday many months back, she showed the first sign of her next stage of devolution into the entitled zone by saying this shit when I called her out jokingly. "Oh, so you're malicious then," I said jokingly since I was still trying to brush it off as another mistake. "I mean, I'm vicious, I'm malicious, and if you keep it up, I'll show you how mean I can become your birthday." That's right. This savage animal decided it would be a good idea to hold my presence hostage just to shut down any conversation. That's when things started to slowly add up in my mind. All these years of unabashed delusions, narcissism, the refusal to admit fault, the inability to control her temper. One friend suggested it could be menopause, but even women who have emotional scrambling from their bodily functions are perfectly capable of being civilized and functional human beings, including my girlfriend, who never lets herself become a mean-spirited dick to people. But anyways, as I was saying, things were slowly adding up as distinct possibilities. When originally they seemed so far-fetched, I easily brushed them off. Things like my sister's general behavior, for example, or my mom's inability to bond with her own sister back then, among other things. I suspect it's all at her feet at this point. I have no proof, of course, but it's a distinct possibility. Ultimately, it's nearly Christmas, and the only thing stopping me from unloading on her after she made my grandmother cry yesterday at the time of this post was my grandma intervening and trying to get me to stop. For my sake, because my grandma didn't want me to be in any deeper trouble, as flattered as she was that I stick up for her. That, and she's old, sickly, has breathing issues, and I could never shake her off once she got going. So I wasn't about to indirectly cause a heart attack to occur to my poor grandmother. That, and my mom would have threatened my Christmas gifts again. Other miscellaneous actions mom says and does generally involve shit like, then can move out if you don't like it. Who do you think you are? Well, you're acting stupid, so I'm justified. She generally loves mind games and acts all smug and self-righteous, baffled that we'd even challenge her on her bullshit, and the worst part is, there's nothing we can do. Police, mental institutions, domestic abuse help, we can't afford any of these for various reasons. One big universal reason being that my mom is the breadwinner, makes plenty of money, while I'm still jobless for various reasons, and even if I had a job, it's very certain I'd make the dough needed to afford the taxes and bills on this house of ours. My father is present in our lives, but he's also not going to be around for as long as mom. Due to the other reasons I won't disclose, just know it is related to health. Any suggestions you guys make, don't bother. I appreciate it, but nothing is gonna work for me out of this situation so easily. I just needed a place to vent about my mother. I really don't know what the hell happened to her over the years. She used to be tough and headstrong. Yeah, but not in a toxic way. Now she's just evolving, slowly breaking down, and becoming nothing more than a she-beast who won't see civilized reason. She won't admit fault for anything, she refuses to control her temper, even to her own sickly mother, and I'm starting to get exhausted by it. My mom is no longer the person I tried to convince myself she is. Now she's a ticking time bomb to treat with kitty gloves, lest she blow up and start drama all over again. As unsatisfying as it may be, I do have some solace knowing my father, grandmother, and friends all agree that she's crazy. Edit. I appreciate the support in the comments. I'll eventually be taking this down, so feel free to use the Wayback Machine to archive it if you desperately find my post appealing enough for it. Ultimately, it's for my safety just in case by some microscopic chance, one of my family and friends end up recognizing it IRL and connect the dots. I know most people don't care that much about it, even post recognizing it, but it's for the best. You might see it taken down before or after the new year starts at most. For now, I figure my story deserves to be shown for a time. I would say to be careful and keep your head low for the next couple of days, because she might just decide to do something just spiteful to your Christmas stuff or other family members just to say I am the almighty and you were all peasants. I know it may be extreme, but when it comes to narcissists, any slight to them is worthy of hellfire in their eyes. I'm not trying to be sexist here, but it's very famously known that typically women are commonly just me in their head. And unfortunately, that's true. Very true. Of course, you have your good person once in a while, but there's no established name for the male Karen, since it is rare. But Karen is just for a woman. The word bitch is also just for women, and there's no equivalent for men. That just goes to show how much women are assholes way more than men. Now, don't get this wrong, not every woman is bad, but it's not uncommon to find this type of vile creature in the wild. This was when I was 8 years old. I was born with brain damage. Because of this, I have a lot of health problems. When I was 8, my health declined quickly and the doctor did not think I would live to the end of the year. Make-A-Wish got in contact with my mom and she told me the rest of my dad's side of the family found out quickly and started to get excited about going to Disney. I chose meeting the actor of Draco from Harry Potter. When I told my family I did not want to go to Disney because there was nothing for me to do, I can't ride a roller coaster, and I don't like Disney princesses or characters, they did not care. I could not go a day without hearing, "Your sisters always wanted to go to Disney World, and you are robbing them of it." Or, "You are our sister, you are supposed to love us." Only one of my sisters was sad I was dying. Or this one, my favorite, "You're going to die anyway, what do it matter? Let your sister have this, you're going to be on your deathbed, wonder why everyone hates you." It became too much, watching my mother cry, holding me, and feeling my other family hate me. So I told my mom that the wish should go to someone that can use it for what they want, not their family. My family made themselves the victims, and for a couple of years after this, they would tell me they hate me and how they wish I'd die. But then when I start to become successful, they start to love me, but I ignore them, working on moving out and cutting contact with them, but for the family that I know love me. I hate it when families abuse the choice of the recipient child. Our eldest son was pretty much nonverbal when it was the stage of his wish being granted through a UK charity. We knew that we were on limited time with our son, so it had to be special for our son. We could have opted for a holiday abroad, but that was not what our son wanted. He managed to communicate that he wanted to see WWE wrestling in the UK and to perhaps meet a wrestler. So that's exactly what he did, and it improved his life so much that he is still alive 12 plus years on from that wish day. Hate to say it, but your story reminds me of one girl's Make-A-Wish, where the parents literally stole it, begrudgingly let her see a concert of what she wanted, and then years later is still belly aching even though they got what they wanted. That she actually got her wish. Mostly because they had to take time out of their busy schedules. I'm just hoping now that you're becoming successful. Just ignore them the second you move out, and if they try anything, go no contact. Seriously, you were in a horrible state and your mother was crying because your father said such cruel things. If the tables were turned now and you said something to what they said, you know that they'd be playing the victim and making you out to be the bad guy when they were the ones that said you'd be alone on your deathbed or you're gonna be dead anyway. Good luck to you in the future.